Hey everybody, it's Eric alongside Rod to go over Michigan State's upcoming game against the East Carolina Pirates from the American Conference in the first game of the Fort Meyers Tipoff Classic. Before we begin, remember to head on over to our support page at www.tffinots.com/support. If you want to join the fantastic supporters on Patreon or Substack, with a monthly or annual pledge, you can get an ad-free audio version of the show straight into your inbox. Okay, Rod, the Fort Meyers Tipoff Classic is so classic, it's in its very first and probable last year. It basically matches up Michigan State and North Carolina before adding the teams East Carolina and State Bonaventure, who the teams will play respectively before taking each other on after the Lions on Thanksgiving Day. The Spartans got the weaker of the two opponents with the Pirates, who are a sub-200 team, and they have really had to struggle this year. They're 2-3 in the season, hailing out of the American Conference. They had a couple narrow victories over Georgia Southern and non-D1 Elizabeth City State, known basketball powerhouse, right? They've lost to Richmond, UNC Wilmington, and Charleston Southern, all by double digits. They're not good offensively. They're 284th overall and have shot really poorly. For as much as Michigan State fans complain, this team is 358th out of 365. So they're much, much worse than Michigan State from three, shooting only 22.4% versus Michigan State's 29.6 or 4, excuse me. They're 218th in 2-point shooting, 207th in offensive rebounding, 307th in free throw percentage, proving that they can't shoot anywhere on the floor. That does offset the fact that they get to the line a lot, but of course they don't make them. They're 100th in turnover percentage, which helps a little bit since they're so bad in everything else. On defense, they're pretty awful, but better than they are on offense. They're 179th overall. They don't stop teams from making threes at sub 300 or twos, sub 200. Foul a lot. They're 312th in fouling. And they do defensive rebound well, 45th. And they're also kind of a mid-pace team at 140th overall, 112th in average length of offensive possession. This is a team that, I mean, on paper, boy, I know they're better on paper than UD Mercy, but it doesn't seem like a whole lot.
Yeah. And, I think when this was scheduled, you had hopes that this might be a little bit better game in terms of the impact on metrics because, they're in the American, which is not a great league, but it's sometimes a multi-bid league.
This is like FAU and UAB, right?
Memphis would be the highest profile program, but
used to be Houston until they moved.
Yep. Yeah. So 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. They were picked 10th out of 13 teams in the preseason. And I would say that it's kind of gone according to expectations thus far. It's been a terrible start. Now, they did have one preseason all-conference team member. That's senior guard Jordan Riley, who is off to a good start. And this is unlike, the American isn't quite, I would call it a mid-major plus league, kind of like the way that, maybe not quite as good as the Mountain West. But similar to that, in that it's not like, say, the Horizon. These are schools with bigger budgets. There's some schools with real basketball tradition, starting with Memphis. But they had to hope when this was scheduled that it would be kind of like that game against San Jose State.
Right.
Or, these guys aren't very good, but they're only going to be rated so low because, they play in a good league, and that their rating may rise once they get into league play. Well, let's hope it does, because right now they're, in the mid 200s. That's not great. No. The one thing that's unusual, though, again, for a school that's not a high major, and you're going to see it as we go through this roster, is they are huge. They have a ton of big guys that they play. And by big, I mean like 6'8", 6'9", 6'10". They got a lot of them. And so you don't see that every day, but it doesn't seem to be helping at all on the offensive boards. Again, really the only things they do well, I guess, is rebound defensively. I mean, that's a real strength. Oh, and they get to the line on offense, but they're one of the worst free throw shooting teams in America, so it doesn't help them much. It's just, it's a pretty bleak situation when you look at this team's resume thus far. And again, given where they were picked in the preseason, I don't know that we can say it's a total shocker either.
Sure. Yeah. Well, they certainly have one of the cooler mascots, or at least logos. I mean, like skull and crossbones, the pirate hat and stuff. But that's about the only scary thing about this team right now. The other one, they can't shoot. And for those of you who are wondering, and I certainly was, like East Carolina, now, Michigan State's playing North Carolina next. So there's actually not a state, East Carolina, for those of you. It's actually in North Carolina. So for those of you who are wondering, in Greenville. This is one of those games. I guess maybe we'll just get into lineup here in just a moment. But I guess this is one of those unfortunate instances where you really are hoping for more, and it's almost one of those games where I think you really don't gain much of anything outside of just what you can learn during the game. But like from a metric standpoint, strength of schedule, it can really pretty much only hurt you, I think. Don't you think?
Yeah, that's the disappointment in it. Yeah. Is I think they probably hoped that it would pay off a little bit more from a ratings perspective, but as of right now, this is a no-win situation.
Yeah, I mean, it originally was set up just be a matchup against North Carolina, and then I think probably both teams thought it'd be nice to have play another opponent while they're there in Florida, because they both have room in their schedule, I assume. Since right. It's kind of like sort of a multi-team event, these feast week sort of things. But
it's not a tournament, though.
Yeah,
it's not a tournament. Whether Michigan State or North Carolina loses, they're still playing each other.
Yeah, and St. Bonaventure plays East Carolina, 2 days later as well. I don't know when that game is. I assume it's sometime during Thanksgiving. So obviously this game will be after Thanksgiving, or not this game, but the North Carolina game is after Thanksgiving. That was the premium. That's very similar to the Arizona game. Was that last year? I think it was last year, wasn't it? So hard for me to remember. Is that 2 years ago?
No, 2 years ago.
Or 2 years ago. Okay. All right. Well, let's get into the lineup for East Carolina, brought to you by the Brothers Jester Gutters, who sponsor a player that Michigan State needs to keep in the gutter. If you're feeling life's in the gutter and you need to get those fixed in your house or your business, contact the brothers today. Get it done now before it gets too cold and icy and stuff like that. They can still take care of things. Make sure that snow melts and everything stays away from your house or your business. They can fix the downspouts. They can clean them out, put leaf guards on, put the heaters on so you don't have ice buildup. Whatever you need, they can take care of it. They do great estimates and very well priced. They come out and they're very friendly and they get things job done in a hurry. They did Rod's former home and my home, and they did a great job. And so I think both of us would highly recommend their work. You get 10% off. You mentioned Final Four. Head on over to our support page at tffinots.com/support to find ways to contact Kurt or Greg and have them come out. And so we're going to go through the lineup here, and then when we're done, Rod's going to tell us who Michigan State needs to keep in the gutter, although I think he's already told us who it'll be. So this starting with the starting lineup, we'll begin with Corey Cocker, 6'1" junior college transfer, averaging 8.2 points a game on 26. And this is the theme we're going to find here: 15-80, second on the team in assists with a little over 3 a game.
Yeah, and he's one of 2 guys who really handles the point guard spot for them. The shooting numbers. I mean, 15% from 3 is rough. 26% overall. Yeah.
Brutal. Unless you're doing all threes, and that's just pulling down your field goal average. Oof. Then we go to Jordan Riley, as you mentioned, one of the preseason All-American or American Conference players. 6'5" senior, averaging 18.5 points a game, shooting 46, 14, and 50 from the line. And that's under decent volume too. He's averaging almost 5 free throw attempts a game. He also pulls down about 6 boards a game.
Yeah, actually a little better than 5 free throw attempts per game. But when you're only splitting them, that's not great. Look, the 14% from 3 is brutal, obviously, but most of his game is inside the arc, and he's a guy who averaged almost 15 points a game last year. He's at 18.5 this year. Also, she's had 6 rebounds. So he's definitely a major contributor for this team and is one of the guys Michigan State's going to have to gear up to stop.
Then we have Tybo Bailey, 6'2" sophomore, averaging 10.6 points a game on 38, 29, and 71.
He's the sharpshooter at 29%. Yeah. I mean, again, rough shooting numbers. There's not much else to say.
Yeah. Then we have Eli Delorier, 6'10", 250-pound sophomore, averaging 2.4 points a game, 3.8 rebounds a game, plays about 15 minutes, shooting 27-0, although it's just on 6 attempts, and a perfect 100% from the line in obviously very limited volume.
Yeah. They
Big
play,
guy,
as I mentioned, they play a lot of size. And so Delorier is a starter, but kind of in name only at 15 minutes a game. But they're basically sharing those minutes. The fact that he's 0 for 6 suggests that somebody thinks he can shoot threes. He just hasn't.
That'd be a lot of hand grenades to get in a game. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And again, when you're 6'10", 250 and you're shooting 27% from the floor, that's a problem.
Right. Yeah. And it's only on 6 threes. It's not like you've shot 27 threes and missed almost all of them. Yeah. This
right.
Finally at the 5, Giovanni Emejuro, 6'10", 260 pounds. You're originally British. He's averaging 17 points a game, 9.8 rebounds a game. He's shooting 58% from the floor, 70% from the line. Oh, maybe he's a sharpshooter, just not from outside. He's averaging almost 10 free throw attempts a game.
No, he's averaging
and a little over 2 blocks a game.
Exactly 10 free throw attempts per game. He's had a really nice season. This is I guess you could say Riley's been okay, but even there, some shooting struggles from deep and at the line. But Emejuro is doing everything. I mean, he's just shy of a double-double. 58% from the floor, so he's obviously playing with it himself. 70% at the line, and when you're getting 10 free throw attempts per game, that's 7 of his 17 points a night are coming at the line. So he's obviously proved to be a very difficult cover in the post. At 6'10", 260, he's got real size. And then averaging a bit over 2 blocks per game, he's helping provide some interior defense as well. So he's had a really nice season thus far.
He sounds a little bit more like what you're going to expect to see in the Big Ten too. So that's probably, one usefulness of this matchup for the interior front court. They'll be able to have to face someone who they're going to see, Now, obviously Cooper and Kohler, those guys are used to it, but a guy like McCullough and Ward, it'd be nice for them to get their feet wet. I mean, they've seen it obviously Arkansas, Kentucky, but to see a little bit more is probably helpful. Then moving on to reserves, we have Isaiah Mbeng, 6'1" sophomore, averaging a little under 6 points a game, shooting 38, 28, and 67. And he leads the team in assists with a little over 4 a game.
Yeah, he's not a starter, but he's averaging in the high 20s in minutes. So you're going to see a lot of him. He's basically a starter in all but name. Again, shooting struggles, but he is their top playmaker. So he'll definitely see a lot of time in this game.
I mean, 28%, that's better than the team average. So
yeah, he's up near the top.
Next would be Luke Davis, 6'8", 240-pound grad senior, averaging 2.5 points a game, 3.5 rebounds a game, plays about 20 minutes. So a lot of time on the floor, shooting only 50% from the floor and 33% from the line.
Again, good size, 6'8", 240. That's high major caliber size, even if the production's not there.
Right. Well, there's a reason he's Carolina and he's not at North Carolina, right?
Right.
Then we have Reed Cason, 6'10", 240-pound sophomore. Again, a lot of 6'10", 6'8", 6'9" guys here. He's averaging 5.2 points a game, 3 rebounds a game on 61, 0, and 100 shooting. Playing decently 15 minutes a game.
That 0 is 0 for 3 from 3. Again, solid, a big man who actually is playing like a big when you look at his shooting numbers.
Right, 61%.
And he's a younger player, but 6'10", 240, that's legit size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then finally, the token Baltic player, Vito Perkovic, 6'10", 230-pound freshman, averaging 4 points a game, 2.2 rebounds a game, plays about 9 minutes. He's shooting 42, 29, and 100.
So he's the stretch big at 29% from three.
He does stretch a little bit. Yeah. Right.
But, again, I've reeled off. That's three guys at 6'10", four guys at 6'10", 230 or above. And then Davis at 6'8", 240. You see what I mean? There's a lot of size. Now, the flip side to that is, boy, you look at the way their guards shoot, and they don't have anybody else playing. That tells you there's really not much in the way of guard talent on this team. Right. And it's hard to win in college basketball at any level if you don't have guard play. So all that size is maybe, as much as it is a positive, it's also indicative of something that's not so good.
Yeah, it is also suggestive, though, to your point earlier about the conference they're in. They're not playing the Horizon. They're not in like the SWAC or something. They do have some legitimate size, which you'd expect in that conference. They're obviously just not skilled enough. And then, as you mentioned, that their guard play is pretty poor. All right. Well, actually, I guess it's somewhat intriguing. Who is your player you think Michigan State needs to keep in the gutter for this game?
I'm going to go with Emajuru. I just think he's been an impact guy, both as a scorer and a rebounder and as a defender too. So he really is impacting games pretty much every way except for deep shooting. So he's the guy that I'm picking to keep in the gutter for this one. They don't have. We've had a lot of guys in that role who have been, like Orlando Lovejoy was an example. We picked Aberdeen in the Kentucky game, guys who are point guards that also score. And so that's an easy choice when your team has a guy like that, because the ball's going to be in his hands a lot, right? But in this one, Riley's their best perimeter player and their top scorer, but he's not really a point guard. So it makes it a little easier to go another direction if you feel there's a good candidate. And I think that, when you're averaging almost a double-double, that's pretty good. So that's the guy I think they got to focus on.
All right, that brings us to Who Cleans the Glass Best, brought to you by the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids. Friends, there's still time. Take care of those windows, whether it's your home, your business, high-rise, whatever it might be. If you're in charge of that, make sure someone else takes care of them. Get on the ladder so you don't have to. Just, stay off the ladders. Let the pros do that. Honestly, we don't want to take care of you later. So they have great pricing. They can take care of the interior as well as the exterior. They can do power washing, whatever you need done. 15% off as a listener to the show just by mentioning Final Four when you get your estimate, which of course you can find at the support page at tffinots.com/support. Get a hold of Troy and his team in the greater Grand Rapids area. Even if you think you're not close enough to Grand Rapids, you probably are. So give them a call just to make sure that they can't take care of things for you. You'd be very glad you did. They took care of my house, and you'll be happy that they did yours as well. All right, so you had the upset victory. You had the non-Kohler victory so far. So you're up 3-2. But that also means since you pick second, you get to pick first this time.
Jackson Kohler.
Yep. Yeah, I've got to imagine he's going to have a little bit of a bounce back this game.
You would think.
Yeah.
You would think.
So, well, I don't think I need to make the same mistake last time. So I'm going to go with Cooper and Carr again this time. Although I tell you, I am a little tempted. I might talk myself out of Carr. I don't know that I'm going to go with Carr because I think I know he's going to get his time, and I think he's going to get some good playing time. So I don't know. I'll go with Cooper and Carr.
And I will go with Cam Ward.
Yep. Yeah, I don't, that Ward and Carr selection, I don't know how you, especially in a game like this where you think you're going to get a little bit more run with Cam Ward, I think you could really see this going either way. And so I think you can't pick wrong except when you watch them play and see what happens.
I would agree.
Right?
I would agree.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to the 5 keys of the game, brought to you by Nudge Printing. There's about a couple days left in order. I don't know when you're listening to this or watching this, make sure you enter the drawing to win the free hoodie. It's the same high quality hoodie that Nudge has. It's the Tom frickin' Izzo. Costs nothing at nudgeprinting.com/win. You just enter your email address. You're automatically entered. We're going to have the drawing before the North Carolina game. So get in that by then and you can have a chance to win this. I have no idea. I haven't actually asked Gabe to see how many people have entered. So maybe you'll be the only one. I don't know. Go do that today. You'll be very glad you did. And while you're there, check out the other stuff at Nudge Printing. They got fantastic selection of stuff. As I always mention, you get 20% off. Use the new coupon code, which is TIFFNOTS, TFFINOTS. Just type in the coupon code at checkout. You get a great discount on all this amazing Michigan State gear, whatever sport it is that you follow and you want to cheer the team on. And if you want to get some gifts for Christmas, good time to start thinking about that now. Get those orders in. You'd be glad you did. All right. So 5 keys again. The first key of the game is second chances. So this is a team that you mentioned. The only thing that East Carolina does top 50 is defensive rebound. They're 45th. So, I guess the question is Michigan State going to be able to get any second chance here? And then I guess also make sure East Carolina doesn't, because they just are a terrible shooting team.
Yeah. And given the way they've rebounded offensively, I'm not worried about that so much. Although again, their size does give you a pause, but they've been playing teams that I presume they've been bigger than, since they haven't played a high major yet.
Right.
And they're still not getting it done. So to me, the real battle here is at the other side, where it's Michigan State's elite offensive rebounding against very good defensive rebounding. They're 45th in the country. We know that that's been a big part of this team's identity the last couple of years. They've gotten back to MSU basketball in that phase of the game. And you want to see it showing up on a consistent basis. So I think of all the areas that are presented in this game, that one looks like the most challenging, the best level of competition between the two teams, maybe in that phase when Michigan State's shooting and missing. Who's getting those rebounds?
Right. All right. So the second key to the game is aggression. This is going to be, you would not be surprised if there are a lot of fouls called in this game. East Carolina draws a lot of fouls. As I mentioned, one player's averaging 10 a game and the guy 5, but also they commit a ton on defense. So Michigan State's done a pretty good job outside of, I guess, the Kentucky game. They only had 10 free throw attempts, but most games they've had high double digits, if not 20 or plus. Yeah. And they do a pretty good job hitting those too. So I guess, they're going to be able to get some work done there.
Well, MSU is 110th nationally in offensive foul rate. So they want to be better than that, but that's with the Kentucky game not getting anything done.
Right.
So
right.
I think they've been solid there. They'd like to be even better than they've been. This team commits a ton of fouls. So there's an opportunity, which is amazing because they don't stop anybody from 3 or from 2. You would think, the way Michigan State's teams were often in Izzo's tenure, they would defend very well in terms of limiting opponent shooting success. But part of the cost would be they were somewhat foul prone. Well, this team's combining the worst of all worlds. So you would like to think Michigan State will be able to get to the line a lot. The question's going to be, at the other end, ECU has done a great job of getting to the line. They just can't hit them. But Michigan State is in the top 40 nationally in defensive foul rate, meaning opponent free throw attempts as a percentage of are divided by field goal attempts. That's an impressive performance, because Michigan State is actually defending really well also, but they're not having a foul to do it. So I think we want to see Michigan State be aggressive in every game. Can they do that here and carve out the kind of distinct advantage that they frequently have this season?
Yeah, it's sort of like you see those maps are quadrants, and you have the don't foul, do foul, on one axis, and play tight defense, don't play tight defense. And East Carolina's in the one where they foul a lot and they don't play tight defense. And Michigan State's the opposite. They don't foul, they play tight defense. Right. Yeah, that's definitely where you'd rather be. So I guess we'll see how Michigan State does. I have every reason to think they'll do pretty well, and they'll probably, especially after the way Izzo was a little upset about their volume of 3-point shooting. I have to imagine they're going to try and attack inside a little more, but we'll see what they do against the size of Eastern Carolina. All right, so third key of the game is the transition game. We talk about this all the time. Obviously, Michigan State lives in with the transition game. Izzo was a little upset, I think, after last game, thinking it just didn't quite look as much as it should. And I think even for as good a game as Jeremy had, maybe they could have pushed a little bit more in that game. I don't know.
Yeah, he said that he feels it stagnated a little bit, and the numbers against Kentucky were not there. And and it was okay against U of D, but not great. I think they had 16 fast break points.
Yeah, you'd expect more, right?
You would in that game. So you'd like to see it get reignited, get back on track. And when you're facing a team that presumably, I didn't check everybody on their staff, but I don't think there's anybody connected with this program that has experience facing Michigan State. Oftentimes, that is a recipe for a big transition night or day for MSU.
It's funny because we were looking up tempo partly because my son, who I told you, he's obviously in Indianapolis, most at Purdue. They're the IU Indy team. I don't know if you know this, but they are the number one tempo team in the country.
Okay.
They average 83.7 possessions a game. And I think the next closest is 77.
Yeah.
So they are
a lot.
Now they're only 2-3, I think. They've opened the season. I think they scored 102 on Ohio State. Now they gave up 100 and something, like 115 or something like that. But and they're otherwise not great. But their coaches just came up from D2. His philosophy is to play super duper fast. At Michigan State, despite having that, and I would thought, Michigan State pushes, but they'll push and then they'll stop if they don't get something. And so
that's right.
Their tempo actually doesn't end up being that high. I think they're 160th or sort of.
Yeah, they've never been
in the country.
They've never been, a top 30 kind of tempo team. Even a year like last year, I don't know what they finished in terms of tempo, but remember they had the third best transition game in the country in terms of point production. So that's an illustration of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They push until there's not an opportunity to get an easy basket, and then they'll pull it out and execute in the half court.
And then they just try and run efficiently that way. All right. So the fourth key to the game is the two guards. Fort, Tang, even Scott looked really good against Kentucky. And last game, I don't think any of them looked great, although Scott defended okay. And Izzo, he almost alluded like he might have Scott start this game. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think it was a letdown, and that's it. It's not surprising. I mean, we're talking about two guys that are really getting their first opportunity to play college basketball, in Tang and Scott, and then a guy in Fort who's with his sixth team in 6 years. So it's a recipe for inconsistency, especially early. And I think it would be great if somebody in this group does find a level of consistency. That would be ideal. But what they're hoping for is that they get to the point that they can count on at least one of these guys showing up and really being productive every night. We come off a game where Fort and Tang were both very productive as scorers. And, Jordan Scott didn't do much. He might not have even scored in that game, if I remember correctly. But he still contributed with defense, rebounding, etc. So to go from that to a U of D game where they just none of the three were really great. Jordan was probably the best, which is damning with faint praise to some extent, because I did not think that was his strongest game.
Right.
But you want to see those guys get it turned around fast and start. You can't establish consistency until you get the first one. So you want to get back on the beam.
All right. So the fifth and final key is the post defense. Emma Giroux has been tough this year. He's obviously shooting 60-some%, drawing 10 fouls, shots a game. So he's going to be tough for whoever's out there. And, we've all seen in that respect, we've seen Cooper struggle a little bit with some early foul trouble.
Yeah, that's one concern. And this guy definitely has drawn fouls, not just for Carson, but presumably Jackson and Jesse are all going to get turns as well. In the U of D game, they had some foul trouble in that group. Carson and Jesse were in a little bit of foul trouble. And it ended up not being a big deal. But there was a point in that game where it looked like they might be a little short there. You don't want that in this game. So it's going to be a challenge for Michigan State to defend a guy who's been very productive and do so without fouling. So I'm eager to see if they could do that, because that's the one spot where you feel like you're getting, maybe something close to a Big Ten caliber challenge.
All right. So then that kind of wraps things up. And I guess just quick little discussion about this. This is obviously a replacement, and what Michigan State probably does a multi-team event every other year. It seems like they do Maui, and then they would have an off year, and then they do another tournament. Do you think they're done doing these tournaments? Do you think they're going to do that one like they have out? Is it Vegas right now? That
the
kind of weird
players
one,
era,
multiplayers era event or something like that?
I have heard
I don't know.
nothing from Tom Izzo that suggests he's got interest in those NIL driven deals. That doesn't mean they won't. And, it may get to a point that he feels he's got to do that in order to get the caliber competition he wants. We'll see.
Sure.
But, yeah, I've heard nothing about MSU clamoring to get in one of those things. And that they have been offered those slots.
For sure.
What they mean in terms of eyeballs and attention. Absolutely, those events would love to have them. And MSU hasn't done it thus far. I don't know. There just are an ever dwindling number of Thanksgiving tournaments. So, and even if you want to play them, you really can't now. This past week was George Washington's head coach. So George Washington is an Atlantic 10 school. So basically kind of like this, where they're not a high major, but they're not the lower levels either. They're that mid-major plus kind of designation. A10 is also a league that occasionally gets multiple bids.
Sure.
And he said they just, with the way that it's been gamed now, everybody understands the impact of what we were talking about, that if you have a no-win situation with an opponent, doesn't matter how much you get, you can only tread water basically if you play this kind of team. And GW is certainly not quite that bad, but he says they are finding it almost impossible to get somebody in it. And if there is interest in them being in an event, the high major schools will say, well, we don't want them in because it doesn't mean enough for us to play them.
Right.
So that's where we are. How all that impacts what Tom Izzo can do. I think he's shown this year, and he's always been of this mindset. It's just that for years and years, most other coaches were afraid to do it. He's perfectly fine playing home and homes. They're going to go to Arkansas next year. The Duke game this year is a return game, so there's no trip to Duke that's imminent. But, then you got the Champions Classic. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what that schedule looks like next year. But I do know that other than those made for NIL events, the opportunities to play, 3 really good games or 2 really good games over the holiday period are dwindling fast. So we'll see. But I think the only reason Izzo would do it is if he felt like it was the only way he could get the kind of competition and preparation that he needs.
Right. And here he's getting someone, right? He's getting North Carolina. He has to play
absolutely
a tomato can. So it's okay. It doesn't matter. And if you do one-off events every year, then next year do Houston, maybe somewhere like in, play in Dallas or Oklahoma City or wherever, it doesn't matter. But, some other destination, then I guess you're probably okay if you're not doing home and homes, as long as you're getting one-offs against teams in other big programs in other conferences. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Connecticut like 2 years from now, not next year, probably because they're going to be doing the exhibition, but I wonder if you start seeing, because UConn's and certainly shown the interest in playing about anybody anywhere, or St. John's, maybe there's
well, UConn would be one. I think Tennessee.
Yep.
Rick
exactly.
Barnes.
Yep.
Are you think about coaches that he has a well-established relationship with, and those would be the most obvious candidates, right? But we'll see.
Yeah. I think also I saw an interview, I believe it was a press conference which Bill Self was asked about the Maui Invitational, and he was saying something like, well, it's like $600,000 or something to get your team there and lodging for a couple of days. And, if they're not paying that out, I don't know why it doesn't make any sense for us to go. Yeah. And I think you're seeing the economic reality of it, because quite frankly, the interest in college basketball, although it's there, obviously with a fan base here, listeners, it's just not close to what it is obviously around March. And so it's just really hard to get eyeballs on college basketball when it's football season still, especially wrapping
Well,
up.
One exception of that, though, was Thanksgiving week, feast week, because you do have people are home and they're looking for something to watch, some sports. That was typically a good week for college basketball. It was a great week if you're a fan of the sport, because you had all these tournaments going on and just great matchup after great matchup after great matchup. Now, there have been comments similar to the ones Bill Self has made about events like Maui. And it is true. It's very expensive to get out there. And the one difference is typically in Maui, unless you happen to be in a year where you drew Chaminade, you do get the benefit. We're not talking about these events where you're not getting any benefit in terms of the scheduling impact.
Right.
But
you're playing high majors. Yeah.
But it's very clear if the choice is you can spend $500,000 to play in this event, or you can make money, you can be profitable by playing in another, which way most guys are going to go. Yeah. I get the economic realities of it. I dislike the loss of these kinds of events because, and I'm old enough to remember a time where they weren't that prevalent. I mean, when I first started paying attention to college basketball, and really up until the late 80s, the Great Alaskan Shootout, and there was one in Hawaii, not Maui. It was the Rainbow Classic that Hawaii hosted, University of Hawaii. Those were big deals, and those had great fields typically, and those were interesting. Of course, they were also in an era where those games weren't always televised.
I was going to say there wasn't much television back then, so the revenue wasn't there either. Yeah,
but it used to be common that you would have over the holidays. Sometimes it would be in December, actually, not Thanksgiving. You would have these 4-team tournaments. MSU, of course, a lot of listeners probably remember. It was originally the Spartan Cutlass Classic, and then it became the Coca-Cola Classic. But it was a 4-team event. They'd usually have one high major and then a couple of mid majors. I remember one year I used to go, my dad was a member of the Rebounders Club, and I went and saw, this was quite a lineup. I can't remember who the 4th team was, but 3 of the coaches on the panel at the luncheon, it was Judd Heathcote, obviously, Jim Larinaga, who was coaching Bowling Green at the time, and of course later went to 2 Final Fours. He's been to one with George Mason and then one at Miami. Mm-hmm. And then Kelvin Sampson, who had been a grad assistant at MSU and was back with his Washington State team at the time. So great coaches that year for sure. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a rejuvenation of those. Indiana used to do 2 of them. They had the Indiana Classic and the Hoosier Classic. So they would do 2 each year, but that might come back maybe. But I think the one encouraging thing that we are seeing is, despite the loss of the Feast Week tournament, it does not feel to me that we've lost much, if anything, in terms of the number of high caliber matchups between teams. Right. We are still seeing a lot of those, and we are seeing more home and homes, which is great because they're more compelling
for sure. Yeah.
An on-campus environment is just, it's like conference play, it's a different thing. The advantage to the neutral site games is you can argue that they give you a more honest level check about where you are as a team.
Okay.
Because somebody doesn't have home court advantage, right? And I get that. But so far it feels like we're doing okay in that regard. Yeah. I hope that continues. But I just think the economics have to, and here's the other thing. ESPN owned like 90% of those events. Uh-huh. They actually owned them. So as I saw someone put it the other day, said if the television network doesn't think it's worth their while to kick in money to make this more economically feasible for teams, then that kind of tells you the story, right?
That tells us
at least of the financial end of it. It's just too bad because I think those of us who pay close attention to the sport, I can tell you that for me, Maui has often been, other than March, kind of one of the highlights of the season. And that's even if Michigan State's not in it. I mean, I can remember how great it was when you had the Sean McDonough, Jay Billis, and Bill Rafferty trio calling games in Maui. That was must-see television, no matter who was playing. I think in recent years, the Battle for Atlantis really became a great event. Playing in a ballroom with that weird blue lighting, but great matchups. They would have great fields year after year after year.
Yeah.
So I do think we're missing something with those going away, but things change in the sport. As I say, those things weren't always around. I can remember a time when they weren't. So as long as we continue to see what we've seen this season with a ton of really good matchups, either some on neutral courts and some actually as part of home and homes, then we're probably still okay on balance.
Yeah. Unlike football, you are very much rewarded for having a strong strength of schedule. And so,
that's exactly right. Teams, the motivating factor for it to continue, for schools to find a way to play these kind of games is exactly that. It's that, if you don't, you're going to have a problem come seeding time.
Yeah. Just razor thin margin for error, right?
Yeah. Or even if you end up as a team on the bubble, boy, you want to have as many opportunities for an important win as you can get.
Right. Exactly.
Many times a win in November might be the difference between making the field or going to the NIT or the CBI.
Yeah. I mean, not that we're worried this year, but obviously Michigan State has two presumably big wins. They're quad one-ish wins against Arkansas and Kentucky, almost no matter what they do the rest of the year. So those are going to be good wins come selection time.
You would
think. I would just, the other thing I'd add with the Thanksgiving week, I do think that football with its expansion, I mean, pro football is going to be playing on Friday, I think, Black Friday. You've got a number of college football games on Friday. The week is getting clogged up more with football as it just kind of spreads out.
That's probably true.
Man,
that's probably true.
So I think that kind of throws a monkey wrench into things too, just from an eyeball standpoint. I think just when you have end of the season matchups versus early season matchups, it's pretty easy as far as what's more compelling for most fans. They had to just, pick one or the other. So, all right. Well, the game is at 1 p.m. on Tuesday. So we will be live, but it's after I get off work. And so I got to watch the game. And so I'm not sure when that will be. So I would encourage everyone to join us live. It might be around like 5 or something like that. We'll see. And then we'll have to have a quick turnaround and we'll get a pregame up for North Carolina. So again, reminder that you have until the North Carolina game conclusion. So by Thanksgiving, you have to have entered in for the free drawing for the Tom Frickin' Izzo shirt at Nudge Printing. So go to nudgeprinting.com/win. Also, the Beat Rod contest has about a week and a half left. December 2nd is the last days. That's when Michigan State takes on Iowa. That's the beginning of the Big Ten season. So you have to have in your entry by then. Eric at tffinots.com. 1 through 18, the final Big Ten standings, your predictions, see if you can do better than Rod has. You should also put in your name, obviously, and then how many points you think Michigan State will score against Michigan this year. And they do play twice. That will be the tiebreaker, which had to get used last year to separate it. And of course, the winner for that, first and second prize, are both really great gift cards and a lot of selection at Nudge Printing. So you can get some cool Spartan stuff. So until the post game with East Carolina, the Final Four is on the schedule. Go green.